Mike says, "Look, they both have their cell phones out. It's a conference call, I'll bet." "Yep, it is. I'm intersecting marked signal and getting the audio feed as well. They're coordinating with the guys outside. About 7 altogether from what I can tell. They're confirming that everything's ready. They're saying that there'll be one more call to trigger the event," reports Todd from his console at the bar. "Can you get a shot of that van we spotted down the street?" says David. Jay brings up a window and closes in on the front of the van. Sure enough, the driver's on his cell phone. "Can you see that, Lance?" "Yep. I guess the show's about to start. The guys coming for the elevator shaft must be in that van. Look, the van's starting to move now." "Okay, I'm getting into position," says Lance. They watch as Mark and Sid fold their cell phones shut. They slip into the coat room and emerge a few seconds later with their coats on. Sid, unobtrusively but quickly, makes his way towards the northeast end of the dance floor near the emergency exit. Mark moves towards the elevator room door. Sid, now on the other side of the club, pauses and fumbles with a cigarette. Looking harmless, he staggers a bit to deflect attention. They all watch Sid as he reaches into his vest pocket and pulls out what appears to be a cigarette pack, but is in reality filled with tightly packed firecrackers. He opens one end of the pack and extends a short fuse. Out of his pocket, Sid takes his small butane lighter along with a smoke bomb. Mark's phone vibrates silently. Sid's does too. Todd says to all, "Incoming." The phone call is the cue that everyone is in place. Sid looks around to see who's looking. The security cameras are. Todd is. David, Lance, Mike, and a host of others are, but he doesn't know that. He lights the fuse on the fireworks and hurls the little pack into the crowd of couples near the center of the dance floor. As the first of them goes off, all attention in the club turns to the explosions at the center of the floor. People begin to scream and scatter. Sid quickly lights the fuses and rolls several smoke bombs in different directions around the dance floor. Then he opens one of the small bottles, pulls out the cork, and lights a tiny wick. He smashes it hard on the floor in the direction of the smoke bombs. He quickly does the same with the second bottle. They burst into flames and splay out wildly across the floor. People start screaming and panicking and running for the exits. "Well, here we go, guys," jobs David into his mic. The fireworks exploding in rapid succession, the smoke billowing, the glaze of flames burning across the floor, and the crowd screaming, pushing, tripping, and falling over one another create a scene of general panic. There is a roar of shouting and screaming, beer bottles and glasses crashing to the floor. Mylar flakes catch fire and embers rise. The smoke becomes thick. Now there is total panic. From all around the crowded floor, people scream, "Fire!" Todd cuts the sound system. "And presto, now we have the emergency doors open," Mike observes dryly from the balcony high above. People dash for the fire exits, remembering too many cases of club fires like the one in Rhode Island. Door alarms from around the club begin to shriek, and this only makes the panic worse. Lance's guys, however, are quickly on the spot with barrels. They cover the smoke bombs, which are beginning to fizzle anyway. The fires were minimal and easily quenched with CO2. Todd is immediately on the loudspeaker system saying, "Everything's okay, people. It was just fireworks and some smoke bombs." But the panic continues and few people hear him over the screaming and alarms. On the north side of the club, Sid rushed the northeast emergency exit door as soon as he finished setting off the second firebomb. Its alarm sounds, but all eyes are elsewhere, and one more alarm does not attract any attention under the circumstances. A few people rush out the northeast door with him, but most of those fleeing go instinctively for the door they entered through. Thus the main entrance is overwhelmed with the crush of screaming, coughing, gagging people desperately trying to get out. Harry and Sid rush in through the open exit door while the firecrackers are still exploding. Dressed in their heavy coats and ski masks, they carry the assault rifles. They jump up onto the unlit stage and theatrically spread out, legs apart, guns raised. They are totally unnoticed in the fog of smoke and general confusion. Each of them has carefully stuffed 4 pop bottle Molotovs in their parkas, 2 in each pocket. They are seriously tweaked on crystal and irrationally fearless. They look at one another and shrug their shoulders, wondering why nobody notices them. They wait a few moments. As the fireworks quickly sputter out and the smoke bombs are quelled, the alarms begin to time out one by one and the noise level recedes. After the ear-shattering racket of a few moments ago, relative silence obtains. The air is thick with smoke, general sounds of moaning and, "Oh shit, who the fuck did that? Hey man, were you scared?" A thick but thunderous volley of gunfire shatters the calm and whips everyone's stunned scrutiny to the dimly lit figures on the stage. All is suddenly silent again, except for an occasional gasp, a whisper, and the sound of crushed glass underfoot. All eyes are now on stage. On the other side of the club, in the confusion, Mark has slipped into the elevator room. He immediately slides the locking bolt into place in case someone saw him enter and tries to follow. Next, he turns to the loading dock door and pulls the restraining bolt and slides it quickly open. 4 guys rush in. One hands Mark a gun. As they hear the muffled sounds of Harry and Steve letting loose with their fusillades, the 4 assassins, each brandishing semi-automatic rifles, leap onto the freight elevator, pull down the gate, and hit the button for the top floor. The elevator comes to life and begins rumbling up through the darkened shaft. Mark waits by the loading dock door. A monitor shows the security camera view of the first-floor elevator room. As the 4 gunmen enter, Lance says, "They'll be up here in a few seconds, guys." Mike and David Sid from the balcony high above watch Harry and Steve on stage. Mike says, "Okay, now what? What the hell are these guys doing? Must be Pete's idea of a diversion, I guess. The smoke bombs were never going to be enough." "Well, we're going to let them shoot people?" "No, they're the sideshow. Their job is to attract attention." "Well, they've done that. But if they start shooting people, we shoot back. But first we bag the guys coming up in the elevator. Believe me, man, Todd's got the place totally covered. I just hope they don't break any of the skylights. They'd be a bitch to fix this time of year," says David as he turns back to the elevator shaft. Mike rolls his eyes, looks at him, and says, "Geez, I wish I were so damn confident with a bunch of guys with guns running through my house." However, Mike turns and looks over the balcony at the console where he sees Todd calmly observing the guys on stage, one hand on his mouse, the other on his keyboard. Mike wonders what he's up to. Harry and Steve, having finally gathered the undivided attention of everyone on the floor, begin to execute the robbery part of the plan. Harry picks one of the guys in the crowd and tosses him a bag and tells him to go take it to the bar and have it filled with cash. In the meantime, he and Steve continue to menace the crowd with their guns and joke about how they'll shoot the place up as they take their leave. The kid designated to gather the cash nervously picks up the bag and goes to the bar. There, one of the bartenders opens the cash doors and starts emptying the contents into the sack. After letting Harry and Steve in, Sid jogs around to the street across from the old loading dock where the waiting van driver hands him a pistol. He then returns to cover Harry and Steve's getaway. As the elevator passes the halfway point between the 4th and 5th floor, the motor suddenly quits and the emergency brakes clamp the cage to a shuddering halt. The guys are caught off balance and one falls on the coarse wooden floor. A dazzling array of halogen flood lamps bursts from the landing above. The would-be killers are now blinded and trapped in the cage between the floors. Lance's loud voice booms from above saying, "Put your guns at the back of the elevator and step forward with your hands behind your heads. One false move and we'll blow your fucking brains out." In the bright light above, they see the convincing reflections of many gun barrels aimed their way. David, Mike, Lance, and Lance's security guys, including Tom and Bob, are on the landing above looking dispassionately down into the cage with the 4 trapped assassins. One of the would-be killers mutters, looking up and shading his eyes from the floodlights, "Oh shit." This succinctly summarizes the thoughts of each. "Like shooting fish in a barrel," Lance laughs to the others, who chuckle in agreement. Looking down, he says, "What's it gonna be, boys? Drop the hardware or we start shooting your arms off. I am not a patient man." "Welcome to 9 West, jokes Mike in an aside to David, who winces. Mark hears what's happening above. He quickly ducks through the loading dock door and runs fast around to warn Sid that there's been a problem. Outside, a milling, panicked, freezing throng pays no attention as they are more interested in the scene inside the club being conveyed by cell phone text messages. Finding Sid lurking in the shadows outside the emergency exit, Mark urgently says, "Come on, man, let's get out of here. It was an ambush. They were waiting for us." They hurriedly walk away from the club to their car, trying not to attract attention. In the elevator, Joe's guys look to one another, mutter epithets in their frustration, and begin tossing their guns to the back of the cage, then stepping forward with their hands clasped behind their heads. When the last of the guns is dropped, the elevator resumes its ascension until it stops on the 5th floor. One of the security guards pulls open the cage. The would-be killers look to one another and at the muzzles of the array of weaponry point in their direction and abandon any ideas of escape. One of the guards enters the elevator and gathers up the discarded arsenal, while others fasten the captives' hands behind their backs with nylon cable ties. David taps Mike on the shoulder and gestures back towards the balcony, where they return to watch the events below. Lance has his men strip search the would-be killers, who are quickly reduced to their shoes and shorts. While it hasn't been decided where to dump them, he figures wherever they end up, it'll be more embarrassing this way to Pete and Joe when they're discovered. When finished, Lance hits the ground floor button and the would-be killers and their captors descend. Outside, one of David's vans backs up to the loading dock. Joe's van driver, however, watches from across the street. He turns to the 2 guys with military grenades who are going to start bombing cars in the lot and says, "Better wait. Something's going on over there. Why is that van backing up to the loading dock? I don't like the looks of this." One of the others replies, "Yeah, I think it might be a good idea to wait. This wasn't in the script." Across the street, a club security guard hops out and opens the back doors of the van. Suddenly, from the loading dock, the would-be killers are pushed unceremoniously out and into the back of David's windowless white van. Its rear doors are slammed shut and bolted. Several of Lance's men get in the van and it speeds off. One of the security guards stays behind and returns to the elevator room. He slides the door back in place and rebolts it, then unbolts the door to the club. Carefully, he checks there is no evidence remaining of what has recently happened. From across the street, Joe's van driver is spooked and whispers to the others, "Holy crap, did you see that? Something's gone real wrong. I'm calling Mark to see if he knows anything." He frantically tries calling Mark and Sid on their cell phones but gets no answer. "Hey guys, I think it's time to abandon the mission." "I think you're right," says one of the others as they quietly drive off.